Okay, magandang gabing bayan. It's good to be online again with Walang Plastikan. So very nice that you are here today with us, and I have a very, very special guest. So that's why I'm super excited about our show today. And my very special guest is Commissioner Crispian, who is the Vice Chairman of the National Solid Waste Management Commission under the Office of the President. And I think Commissioner Lau is one of the greatest experts of plastic pollution and solutions in the Philippines is concerned, and even over the Philippines borders. He is a very recognized. He has been part of that groundbreaking study, Breaking the Plastic Wave. I read that study and I had one session about it a few months ago, and I think it's a very powerful study. And he was also part of the technical advisory group for the global review of safer end of engineered life. He is further the founding president of the Philippines Alliance for Recycling and Material Sustainability, PARMS, which is really doing a very good job with a lot of stakeholders. And the initiative that he has launched there is Zero Waste to Nature Ambition 2030. So that is developing a roadmap for single-use products and packaging applications. So we are very, very excited, Commissioner Lau, that you are joining us today to share your expertise with us. So with no further ado, let us welcome Commissioner Crispian Lau.
Hi, good evening, Peter. Good evening, everyone. And thanks for having me.
Great. We had some technical difficulties, so we are a bit delayed, but nevertheless, I think it's never too late to talk about pollution. And thank you, Commissioner Lau, for being available today for us. And we want to go through a number of questions. And my first question is more like a personal one. If you could describe yourself with 3 words, how would you describe yourself?
That's going to be tough, no? I'm talkative, I'm engaged, and I'm dedicated.
Yes, and I think that's a very good attribute for fighting pollution, because you have to talk a lot, you have to be dedicated, and that's wonderful. In your life journey, as you have come to this point of being on becoming an international expert on plastic pollution, what have been some of the important milestones in your life journey that formed you?
Well, first of all, being part of the commission, wherein you have to be elected by your peers from industry to be able to represent the entire industry in a government agency, in a national government agency like the National Solid Waste Management Commission. And I think another landmark milestone, if you can look at it, would be being able to put together the big companies and different organizations under one table, under PARMS, with a common agenda, and then getting them to sign off and to commit to a zero waste to nature 2030 ambition. So, of course, the being considered or being part of international studies like Breaking the Plastic Wave, and being recognized by the international community on solid waste, not only for Asia but globally, is really something to be to, uh, to really enjoy, I guess, or to be proud of.
Yes, that's really true. It's these are remarkable achievements, and I think that knowing you now for a while, you really have done a lot of research and also practical work in these areas that helped you, or that enabled you to do this work. And maybe it would be nice to know what attracted you to work in waste management. How did you get actually the vision that I really want to make a difference here in this area or problem that the nation is facing. Not only the nation, actually, the whole world.
Quite an interesting question. This may be something that not everybody would want to get into. It's a dirty job, but again, early on, I think as early as year 2000, we saw the need. Me coming from industry, we saw the need to really do something about a potential problem, and this potential problem we have seen has grown exponentially. What really got me deeply involved is the lack of science, the lack of having the right information out there to the public. And I'd like to commend sustainable PH. You're doing this to enlighten the people. Not everything you hear or read in the internet is absolute truth. So it is really important for us to steer the people, the general public, in the right direction.
Yeah, thank you. That's good to hear. Yeah, it's really true. Not everybody would like to deal with waste, but it is a very important aspect, and I think we have been partners in this kind of endeavor, or very much aligned. Then maybe Commissioner Lau, if you would like to maybe share maybe a big picture of the current situation of plastic waste in the Philippines, so that our listeners would get some understanding from your perspective.
Well, I should say that plastic waste is one component of total waste in the Philippines. And the biggest challenge for a developing country like the Philippines is really the lack of infrastructure to manage the waste. And having said that, the lack of infrastructure for proper segregation at source, meaning lack of participation of the general public to segregate the waste from its source, the lack of government infrastructure to properly collect, and the lack of infrastructure really to treat the waste. The plastic waste is a component of the total waste, as I mentioned. Recyclable waste would be around 10% of total waste, with plastic waste ending up at landfills to be around 4%. So, again, the situation really is really the lack of infrastructure, especially for recycling, for treatment, and final disposal. We have to consider that 70% of the waste ends up in open dumps until now. There's no home for them. The sanitary landfills are still lacking in this country. So you wouldn't be surprised with all the leakage. But government is doing what it can to close down all the open and controlled dump sites. Industry is stepping up to really do something about the plastic waste that is generated. And we need to see more of this happening. We need an holistic and a participative approach where everybody should do their own role in helping protect our environment and doing what needs to be done to address the plastic waste problem.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's very much what I also was thinking. A kind of an holistic and participatory approach, because I think probably it needs everybody to get on board, all the stakeholders, and it needs also probably investments in the infrastructure in this kind of situation. Um, Maybe you could share a little bit about the initiatives you are involved right now. With that, in what way are they pursuing that kind of solutions like that you have just mentioned?
Well, as you said in the intro, we came out with our declaration of zero waste to nature with a 2030 ambition, with a clear timeline. And what we want to happen is we want to redesign our products that are put in the market, products and packaging that are put in the market, to make it more circular. In line with the SDG 12 goal of sustainable consumption and production. What we want to do is to maximize the use of resources by bringing it back into the system. And we believe that the study has shown that it is possible for us to do it. We do understand that the market really is what we call a sachet economy or a tingi market. You know, people can only afford to buy in small quantities. But having said that, we shouldn't deprive them of the opportunity to get quality goods. However, we need to address the problem. So, education is key. No, we still follow the hierarchy of waste. We need to avoid the generation of waste whenever possible, and then we reduce, reuse, and more importantly, we recycle. So, recycling is key in turning what these materials. You know, plastic is a valuable material that can be turned back into resource, and if we are able to collect it, we should be able to do something about the material, to recycle it or to treat it and convert it to energy. There are a lot of different options. We have done pilots and we have seen successful pilots that have been done. There are different programs, and we have seen a lot of social enterprises that are out there already doing good work. Now, what needs to happen is to spread it, to make them grow, to apply it, and really to institutionalize all the mechanisms so that we address the problem in a holistic approach.
Mhm. What you just mentioned a few pilots, and that's very exciting, and to see that things are really moving forward. Would you like to share maybe one or two pilots that you are really very excited about, and you think those are very promising?
Yep. Yeah, there are good work on the ground by social enterprises. Examples would be Plastic Bank. That's where we met, Peter.
Yeah,
Plastic Bank
exactly.
is actually doing good work on the ground in educating and creating value from the plastic waste. So that is key, you know, creating value from waste. Now, apart from Plastic Bank, there are other organizations like PCX doing good job. There's Envirotech that converts it to chairs. Now, there's now a lot of these organizations that are doing good work. Now, what we need to happen now is to systemically shift these social enterprises into a system, a formalized system where they are recognized, where they are adopted. You know, there's a lot of talk right now about EPR, and industry is embracing EPR to help the government. Now, in the EPR that we are envisioning, as far as the industry is concerned, we want the EPR to be inclusive. Now, how do we approach that? Meaning the EPR not from a German model, not from a European model, not from an American model that puts up a responsibility organization, hires a company, gets rid of all the rest. No. We want a system that integrates the good work that social enterprises have been doing, and all these social enterprises now can be a part of the EPR system and can benefit from the system that will be institutionalized, and that's the vision that we want in the next few years.
I think that's a very good idea. I think maybe many of our viewers don't know what EPR means. It's extended producer responsibility. Maybe, Commissioner, would you just explain shortly what it entails, so our listeners got an idea what we are talking about?
Well, extended producers responsibility is actually making the producers of products that are put in the market responsible and accountable for the products that they put in the market. So the general principle of EPR, or extended producer's responsibility, is that whatever you put in the market, you have to find a way to recover it at the end of its life. So we have seen now that plastic is a problem, and there is now a proposal to have an EPR system for plastics. Now the Senate is coming up with a draft bill that is all inclusive, any material. So whatever you put in the market, you are responsible for dealing with the waste that it generates at the end of its life, especially for packaging. We believe that in doing so, and in implementing a system, this type of a system, it becomes now inclusive. Then you now are able to generate the funds that are needed to get the people to participate and get involved. So there's a big component of education that needs to. There's a big component of participation that is expected from the general public, from consumers, from people like you and me. We need to participate in the system for it to work. And again, it really is all stakeholders putting their acts together if we want to deal with this problem.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true. I think you're very, very right. It needs the consumers really to segregate the waste at home, because otherwise it will not work. If the waste is mixed, you cannot really recover the recyclables in the end. But then you also mentioned about redesigning products. Are there initiatives, or especially in the light of the, what you would call that, the sachets, which are often multi-layers, which is one of the main reasons why they can't be recycled, right? Are there ways to look into this kind of packaging materials or strategies and to change that?
Well, yeah. Our focus when we did the zero waste to nature study, the focus that we had was really on sachets first, because this is the most problematic packaging
Exactly.
structure that is out there. Again, it being multi-layered gives it a challenge. So we have actually designed or measured how much is really out there, and we have identified what we need to do with the material. First is redesign. So what we are trying to do now is, as an industry, we are collectively redesigning the material away from multi-layer to mono-layer structures or mono multi-layer. Just to give you an idea, what we have right now would be materials that are of different properties. So each layer would be different from each other. So that which makes recycling very, very difficult. So when we design it now, for it to become a mono multi-layer, meaning of the same material type, put it together to at least have the same strengths and the same capabilities as it does right now, we are able at the end of its life process it and convert it into something more effectively. We have had success already. Given even with the current materials, we have had the success in converting the sachets, the multi-layered packaging into chairs, plastic lumber, and a lot of other things. Shifting it to mono multi-layer would allow it to be more effective and more efficient in processing. So again, part of redesign is really addressing the problem, and what's important is for us to develop markets for recycled material. This is one of the bigger challenge. We can always do something about the material, but the bigger challenge is developing and creating a market for those materials, and people need to start buying them. In Europe, people would be paying more for recycled materials. In the Philippines, people, or in developing countries, people tend to shy away from recycled materials. So it needs to transition. And again, we are looking at market development from industry. So meaning we are looking into applications like trash bins, pallets, where it can make a difference. Then plastic lumber also for construction is also one of the things that we are strongly developing.
Mhm. Wow, those are very good news, Commissioner Lau, because I think that would really make a very big difference in changing the whole problem, because it also would mean even for informal collectors to even, let's say, the sachets are also very light, but if they have a market value, people would start collecting it and bringing it back to the to the collection points or the material recovery facilities, where they then could be moved to the processes. And it's really true. We from Plastic Bank have the same experience. The market for recycled products is really important. And a few weeks ago, I had Mr. Cole from from Centennial Plastic, who does the upcycling initiative, right? And so we also discussed about that. So I think that is really, people need to get that mindset that recycled plastic is not qualitative, what you would say, less than virgin plastic, but that it's really a task that we can do for the environment. And even if you look at climate change, it's also better to use recycled plastic than to create virgin plastic to reduce the carbon footprint. So in that way, we need really help people to think differently. And so that goes down actually off my questions. But I was, as we are now sitting together, I was thinking what would be good marketing initiatives. And I think we talked already about education. What would be good? What ideas do you have for your 2030 initiatives to market really that idea into the consumer, to the consumers, to pick it up and to get attracted to it?
Well, again, you mentioned education. Education is primary and the first component. We would not get into a project without information, education, and communications. So through education, you get people to participate. Um, we are now in the process of, or we have completed actually through the help of the private sector, in developing a curriculum for modules that would be integrated by the Department of Education here in the Philippines, so that solid waste management becomes a key component of the educational system. So we have designed that from grades 1 to 12. Now we are in the process, okay, of and Nestle is working on this, and they have actually sponsored this program, and we are now developing modules that can be used at the local level, at the LGU level, at the barangay level. So what we are looking into would be a module so that you can more effectively disseminate information on the ground. So now that you create that level of awareness, for the citizenry, then it would open the doors for more effective program implementation. So once we have rolled it out, we get more and more people that will participate. We already have drop-off centers for some packaging materials. Even your online orders, packaging for your online has a home. All we need to do is for you to participate. What is important is we need to open up an avenue so that our waste pickers, the people who pick our waste right now, who depend on this for their income, earns a little bit more. So again, it gives them now additional materials that they can collect. And all we need to do at home is to separate these materials. Don't mix it with food because it's going to stink. Just separate these materials and keep it clean, and give it to your recyclers, give it to your, bote jaryo, people who go around, give it to your communities, junk shops.
Yeah. I think I think that is really trailing, blazing out a trail forward, because if the kids really get education in the school, and they already start thinking that sometimes it's the kids, right, who go home and they will tell mom, dad, we have to segregate our waste kasi mali yung ginawa na natin dito sa bahay. And once you get into it, once it becomes a habit, so to speak, people will do it naturally. And especially if there's a system where it's being collected and they know the plastic is being recycled. So I think that seems is a very powerful solution, and I'm really very glad to hear that that these modules are being developed, and I hope that they really will be taught everywhere, so all the kids will hear this and learn that. That's wonderful. And then maybe with Plastic Bank, this is also our advocacy to empower the informal collectors, so that seems to be a lot of synergy where we can really move forward. Now we have a number of questions from our our audience. So we have Abir Chowdhury. He is watching from Chittagong, Bangladesh. So wow, that's from very far. Thank you, Abir, for coming from Bangladesh and listening to us, and hope what we are talking is also applicable to you. Then we have Jenilyn Cruz Medina watching from Bataan. So magandang gabi sa'yo, Jenilyn. And Jenilyn is asking, or what she's saying, You Matter Philippines or Lana Philippines is a good example for producer and company. So I don't know that company, so to speak. Maybe do you know them, Commissioner Lau?
No, I don't know them, but maybe she's saying that I think there are companies are now stepping up, and doing what they need to do. And we strongly believe that this needs to be led by the brands, the big brands, and allow others to follow. In fact, what they have been doing is not only redesigning their packaging to make it more circular, but getting these materials back and ensuring that these do not leak into the environment, making sure that the materials get recycled or given to cement plants as a low hanging fruit for us. So again, there are a lot of good efforts being done by companies, and I believe that as consumers, these are the companies that we should patronize. We have 11 of the biggest FMCGs with us right now, and we need to have more of them joining us. Again, it is important for the consumers to look into the companies that are responsible and patronize those companies. Again, this is not an easy task. There is a cost to all of this. Their products can end up a little bit more expensive, but again, the cost to our environment, is much more if we don't do something about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just pay a little bit more and make sure uh, you don't have to clean it up from a beach later on, and or it doesn't kill a fish or a bird or something. Yeah. There's maybe my last question. I'm sorry I did not send it to you. It just comes into my mind right now. There is a big drive also with bioplastic or biodegradable plastic, and it's quite a controversy because some people say, well, it's really great, but then others say no because it's not really rotting. It only rots in the laboratory, and once it gets mixed up with recyclable plastic, it destroys the whole batch and ruins everything. Uh, what would you be your comment on biodegradable plastic or bioplastic?
Well, that's an interesting question, Peter, because I have been, somehow branded as anti-biodegradable. For the record, I'm not anti-biodegradable. Biodegradable plastics, along with biodegradable alternatives to plastic, have a home or has an application. What is important in any form of packaging is what do you do with the packaging at the end of life. You see, you do not want to shift it into a material, whether it's a biodegradable plastic or paper or coated paper that is left on the environment. What is important for us is that any decision to shift away from plastic, whether it's biodegradable, whether it's paper, whether it's glass, you need to ensure that there is a home at the end of life. What do you do with this material at the end of life? We have seen a lot of substitution right now for let's I'll give you an example. Wax coated paper, paper that comes in contact with food, especially the wax coating, given that the wax is more than the paper that you can recover, that is not recyclable, so it ends up in the landfill. So while we think that it is a better alternative, it may not be. With biodegradable plastic, you have to ensure that there are composting facilities that can accept the biodegradable plastic at the end of its life. It has a home perhaps to plastic that will be highly contaminated with food. No? But then you are still in a country that struggles to deal with 52% of biodegradable waste. We can compose the biodegradable. Do you add to the pressure of the infrastructure? So yes, there will be in due time, as long as you ensure that it does not affect food security. Again, if we start planting cassava, and instead of putting it to feed the chicken, using it to convert to plastic, then you might disrupt the whole system. And more importantly, you have to look into what you do with the end of life of biodegradable plastic. Yes, it can contaminate recycling, so proper labeling needs to be in place. And again, the infrastructure for dealing with biodegradable plastic or any biodegradable material at the end of its life needs to be addressed also.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner. I think that was a very great and comprehensive answer addressing the different issues, so that the cure will not be worse than the problem. And I think, as we have already thought, it's really basically the problem is not necessarily the plastic itself, but the knowledge and the infrastructure and the policies to ensure it's not ending in waste, but it's properly managed into a circular economy, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner Lau, I think that was a great talk. I really enjoyed and learned a lot. And I think also for our listeners at Sustainable PH to get this kind of information and to become more responsible citizens and consumers, and also to know where this country is going and what initiatives also the government and the big companies are undertaking to solve the problem. Thank you so much, Commissioner Lau, for your time today.
Thank you, Peter, for having me.
Great. So I hope maybe we can still keep in touch and see where we can work together and to make a greater difference. And really want to thank you. We are now at the end of the episode. Thank you also to our listeners. Wishing you all a great weekend. As it's already evening in the Philippines, here we still have afternoon, so we have still half of the day here in Germany, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. I don't know yet what the topic will be, but there will be a lot to talk about Walang Plastikan. Thank you, everybody, and goodbye. Have a great weekend.